Welcome to Queerly Speaking. I'm your host, Nat Jones, and together my wife and I will navigate the complex intersections of faith, identity, love, and resilience. In each episode, we'll share stories of heartbreak, healing, and hope from individuals who were told they didn't belong in the very spaces that shaped us.
Doing it well.
Welcome back to Queerly Speaking. I'm your host, Nat Jones.
I'm your co-host, Tami Jones.
As you probably have noticed, we did not have an episode last week. We have switched the cadence to every other week. This is such a fun passion project for us, and we want to be able to dedicate the appropriate amount of time to it with work and life and everything else. I think the cadence of every other week might be better, and then we can have a little bit more time to edit the episodes to become better quality, as well as have more time for our content too. So you will see a little bit of difference in the cadence, but hopefully that's okay for our viewers and listeners. And happy Pride Month. It's June. Woo! Pride Month, very important to all of us. And we're actually going to be talking a little bit about that today.
It's a great day to be gay, folks.
Yes, it is. Always is a great day to be gay. So we wanted to in honor of Gay Awareness Month, Queer Awareness Month.
What? Is that what it's called? I've never heard anyone say Gay Awareness Month.
Queer awareness, celebration, awareness.
Awareness is like
it's all the above.
It's giving right wing, honey. Like you're like, be aware the gays are coming.
No, it is not. Jesus Christ.
Maybe
it's
the last thing.
I don't know.
Any hoozles.
My point is that it is a celebration of queer history and hopefully builds awareness and just visibility. It's visibility. That's the word.
Yep.
Queer Visibility Month. So we thought we would talk a little bit about what Pride Month means to us. And we've gotten a lot of questions on about actually concerning visibility recently, and thought it would be good to address. It means something a little bit different to everyone. We're going to talk today about what it means to us, and then would love for you to join the conversation and share what that means for you as well.
Yeah.
So why don't you get started?
No pressure or anything. Jeez. What does pride mean for me? I think it's important. Well, let me think for a second. I think that holistically, and I feel this way about really any, dedicated month, although obviously I am not a participant in all of them, or they're not all for me. This one is, but I feel like it's so much of it is just amplifying queer voices and other people's. And we've talked about this a lot on the podcast, and I know a little bit later into this episode, we're going to talk about how I feel like, exemplify pride in our lives and all of that. And I do want to touch on that. But I feel like this month particularly, I really just try to use my voice because I feel like I'm coming from such a place of privilege, even within the queer community. I'm really feminine presenting, all the things we talk about that. I'm white.
You don't walk into a room and people automatically think you're gay.
No, on the opposite. They do the opposite. So I feel like because of that, sometimes it's like a little bit more palatable for people to hear things from me or like have those discussions, which I obviously don't agree with that. I'm not saying that's correct, but I just feel like it's a time where I really try to use my privilege to talk about, like, I think this year specifically, there has been an emphasis and should be an emphasis on trans rights and protecting trans people. I feel like we're seeing that a lot right now. And, I'm really lucky. I feel like I'm able to live with pride really 365. I mean, of course, there's scary things going on in the world, and, you're always going to get like the occasional jackass or something. 99% of the time, I'm really not at a disadvantage. For me, it's really just, echoing those voices and just, just sharing the message of other people and figuring out other ways that even I can be an ally inside my own community.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I feel like for me, I would say very similar, not that everyone thinks I'm straight. I don't think anyone thinks I'm straight when I walk into a room. But I will say for me, it's the whole idea surrounding June being, highly recognized as a celebration of the queer community is that it's a way to honor all of those who have come before us. And have made, I obviously have made sacrifices in my own life for my own identity. But there were a lot of people, many, many people prior to any of us being alive, where where homosexuality or queerness was against the law. It was considered a mental disorder on the DSM-5. It was, you could be killed, and many people were. There were riots. There were, you didn't get even the opportunity to have this idea that you could have a family. And so for me, I think most importantly is that it's saying, like, we recognize that we had to fight to get to where we are today, like many human rights issues. There are people that lost their lives. There are people who lost their families. There's people who gave up a lot for all of us to be able to be where we are today. We have a lot more work to do, but I think it's very, very important to be able to celebrate like where we're at as of today in our society based on all of those who came before us and the sacrifices that we've had to make. And
I absolutely agree.
And I think it's interesting too, right? You hear people say it's like, oh, the rainbows everywhere and the parades and the this. And it's like, can you just get over making being gay your personality?
No.
And, one, why do you care? If you're asking that question, why do you care? Keep it to yourself. No one really needs to hear your opinion.
Get a fucking hobby.
But it just shows like the lack of understanding about the sacrifice. Granted, there are many queer people in the community that have not had the same experiences that we have. They have families that love them, that have accepted them from day one. That is how it should be for everyone. But unfortunately, that's not really been the majority of the story. We recently posted a story again about Rachel. It's an episode called Dear Rachel. If you haven't listened to it, highly encourage you to listen to it, based on her parents' response to her coming out to them. And it's a phenomenal story. It's full of grace and love and everything that should be there. Unfortunately, there's just not many people who experience that. Or I would say, especially in the older generation, it's becoming much more common today. And I'm so thankful for that. Like, I would love to in the future get to a place where people don't really even have to come out. Like, you only have to come out because it's kind of is not what some people would call the norm. Yeah. It's like, it's going to be great. What I wish for my children is that, like,
I don't know who she's having children with, but I guess it's not me.
What I wish for our children is that they will be able to be themselves, one, first and foremost, and two, not have to feel like they have to say anything unless they want to. If they want to, like, we'll create a parade for you if you want it. However, I want them to be able to come home and, like, I don't know who they're bringing. I'm meeting this person for the first time. It could be a guy, could be a girl, could be a trans man, a trans woman. It doesn't really matter. I would love I want them to not even have to tell me, because they know that it's just common. But I want them to be able to come home and not even feel like they need to tell me what gender the person is. It's just like, here's the person who I like. Yeah. Like, that's all that any of us need to know.
No, I completely agree. I want to go back for a second, because we've kind of touched on this again in a couple episodes, but when you said, it's like there's rainbows everywhere and like, why does it have to be so? It's like, first of all, I think I don't know what everyone could benefit from getting through their heads. Not everything is for you, okay? I'm sorry, I just pounded on the table and now our dog thinks an intruder's coming in, but...
Way to go, babe.
Not everything is for you, okay? Mm-hmm. So it's okay. There are lots of things that are not for us. There's lots of things that are not for me. But those people get to have that, okay? So it doesn't have to be for you. You don't have to go. It's not mandatory that everyone goes to a pride parade. You're going there if you want to. So if you don't want to go, don't go. Like, that drives me crazy. It's okay to have things that are not for you. Not everything needs to be palatable for you.
And when we say not for you, I want to clarify something, because when we have Black History Month, that is for everybody. Everyone should be celebrating and honoring Black History Month. When we say it's not for you, it means it is not about you.
Right. Yes. Yeah, exactly. Thank you, honey.
You're welcome.
No, that is a good clarification. And also in that same breath, it's like, but everyone is welcome. Of
course,
there's tons of straight people that go to Pride, or just allies that go to Pride, or, people of all different types of walks, from walks of life. But I just think, like, I just can't reiterate that enough. Yeah, like exactly what you said. Not everything is about you. Not everything has to make you comfortable. There are a fuck ton of things that make me uncomfortable, and that's okay. Like, I think that's okay for people to do. And
maybe examine it if it makes you uncomfortable.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Let's look within. But I think there are, and you mentioned this, and actually you kind of opened my eyes to this a little bit in conversations we've had separately, but it's like, there are some people, like, again, let's talk about our personal lives. Like, I feel like we're able to kind of be out really wherever, and we'll talk a little bit on how we navigate certain situations on that as well. But like, I'm not really hiding any part of myself. I don't have to do that. I have a very supportive family. I'm really lucky in that way. My job is very supportive. Also, like, again, my general presentation is not anything that would cause a second look in society, really. Like, I'm not conforming to that. That's generally how I choose to present. I'm just lucky that it's very palatable. But there are so many people where that's not the case. I mean, there are people that have really conservative jobs, and I mean conservative in the dress code or whatever the, meaning of that word is. People's family aren't supportive, and it's like, they get to go, maybe they're going to a Pride that's in a different city that they're not from, and they're like, oh my God, I get to be like whatever that is. And in those cases, maybe it's going to be a little bit more over the top than it would be someone's on a Monday, but why does that matter? You know what I mean? Like, some people get one day or 1 month out of the year to just like really be themselves, and I feel like that should be celebrated.
Yeah.
And I only bring that up because I know that's always a thing that comes. Like, it's like, oh, people are so over the top at Pride. And so it's like, first of all, have you guys ever been to a fucking parade before? Like, that's kind of the point. It's not Pride church camp.
Yeah.
Like, and it's a themed party. Like,
yeah, it is. It is a themed party. And the parades are like maybe 1% to 2% of the importance.
Exactly.
And of what actually Pride Month means. It's just things that make people uncomfortable. Those are like when someone thinks Pride and they're uncomfortable around queerness or Pride, they're like, oh God, the parades. It's like, that's all you have to talk about?
Exactly.
Is a parade?
Right. Have you been to a parade? Mm-hmm. I haven't been to one. We probably should go to one.
Yeah. And that's funny you say that, because that is something that I think about a lot, is being more involved in the community, in specific Pride events and Pride things for the queer community. Because right now, work full time, we do this, and then I am chair of a nonprofit board, and it's a wonderful, wonderful board. And so my time does not always allow for some of the extras, but I have like maybe 2 years left, I think, on the current board that I'm on. And there's another organization in town, it's called 1 in 10, that I'd really like to get involved with. I've been trying to set up a meeting with their CEO and tour. They have a community center here. And so there are definitely ways that even you and I could be more involved and more supportive and just build more awareness. But I think that talking about what Pride means to us is really important, because it doesn't just mean one thing. It doesn't mean going to a parade and marking it off your list. It also has to do with like the way that you live your life. And for us, I don't know if it's because you're an interior designer, or I just didn't really have a lot of rainbow stuff prior to you either. And that's not because I'm not really proud. If you meet me, if you interact with me, I'm proud. My expression of that doesn't usually involve rainbows and things like that, although someone else's could and should if they wanted to. Like, we all get to express ourselves differently. The most genuine example of, visibility and what it looks like for me to be able to live my life really proudly is when we have events and things like that. Like, work events used to be really intimidating, or any type of professional events in the community, the nonprofit board, all of these different things. Whenever, and this is years ago now, but whenever people would say, oh yeah, we're going to, it's bring your spouse to that event, or bring your significant other, I always thought they know I'm gay. And they know I'm proud about that. And they know that that's, it's just part of who I am. But then being able to, not even being able to, but showing up with you, like by my side, on my arm, whatever.
Arm candy.
What was it that teenager called you at our last event?
A trophy wife.
A trophy wife.
That was like the highlight of my life, literally.
Oh my gosh. But it's like those types of things. It's like being able to show up in environments that most people would never think about, wouldn't really think twice about. It's like showing up in those moments, being able to represent my family, even though my family looks different. That is the biggest form of like pride that I can really think of.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like the way that we live just in general, and again, that's also from a place, oh my God, excuse me, a place of privilege, right? That we can do that. And especially for you, all the work that you've done to get there. But like we're living our truth every day, you know? And so, but then again, I think that goes back to some people like, so why do you need a month if you're already doing it? It's like, well, if we weren't trying to beat you guys off with a stick, trying to nullify our marriage, maybe we wouldn't, but we do. So that's where we are right now, you know?
Yeah. And that's not to say, I want to be careful how I say this, but there are groups of people who have sacrificed more to be who they are for representation. And oftentimes it's not a minority, and it's not someone who has fought for the ability to be able to like be themselves or their communities or their race or ethnicity. It's usually not those people who are saying anything about it. It is typically white individuals who have something to say about, Black History Month, about Queer Pride Month, about, Juneteenth, about...
Right. It's like every other day is your History Month. That's why we don't have it.
Yeah.
Because we don't need it. You've not been oppressed.
Yeah. And see, that's what we have to be careful with, because I'm sure there are plenty of white people who have been through some hard things. Let me just say that before anyone gets real upset.
Right. And no one is saying like, oh, every white person is whatever. I mean, we're both white. Obviously, we're not saying that. But
yeah.
I think there's just kind of a sense of awareness, and why do we need these? But there's
but
the
still skin
challenges.
Color comes with privilege.
Exactly. No, it definitely does. Yeah. So even today, people may be thinking, well, why do you need that? Like, you have your rights. You can get married now. It's like, okay, first of all, it's been 10 years, right? 2015, that just happened.
Which is crazy.
Right.
It's only been 10 years.
Right. And obviously other states you could before then, but, or other places in the world maybe, but that's not the only issue, like that's not the only issue. Like I said earlier, like I think this year there's a big focus on trans rights and all of those things. And it's like, there's always going to be other things that are going to come up, and we're just going to continue to raise awareness for those things and speak about them. And you should always be trying to make things better. That's another thing I don't understand. Like, well, it could be worse. I'm like, okay, could be better. Right.
But I think even the sense, like even as having this like conversation around, it became a federal right, a human federal right in the United States in 2015. Like, we're not talking about a really long time. We're talking about that prior to that, marriage was not recognized between two individuals who wanted to be married. Like that, I still to this day, it blows my mind.
I know.
Why did it take us that long?
I know.
Thank you, Obama, for that. It changed a lot of our lives. So, I mean, it's kind of funny when you think about it. And I don't really want to surround this whole conversation around white people who are ignorant. But it's like we honor wars. We honor so many things.
Right. Big
in the United States. Yeah. Sometimes things we shouldn't even be proud of.
Yeah.
And someone else celebrating who they are in their life does not take anything away from you. Doesn't take anything away from anyone else.
Yeah, I completely agree.
And maybe the fact that people are still upset about it tells me that we need to keep celebrating.
Yeah, exactly. I was going to say, it just highlights the work that there is to be done.
Yeah. Definitely.
We kind of touched on this a little bit in the car, you and I were talking about this, but I think it's sort of good to talk about, like, to share an example of, like, do you feel like you still have times in your life where you don't feel like proud to be out? Like, you feel like maybe you're not in a safe space to talk about us being married or to really be yourself? Or do you feel like you've really worked through that? Now you're just barging in the room you're in.
So I think a couple different things, because I've been thinking about this a lot recently, because there's different like layers to all of it, if that makes sense. Like when I, because of the way that I grew up and how oppressed like homosexuality was and how much was like, oh, it's a sin, you're going to hell, blah, 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 all of that. It was very much like very black and white. Like I had to fight really hard just to work myself through that, you know, I should love myself and I should celebrate myself and who I am is okay and all of those things. And now it's interesting. The hurt and the pain of that type of scenario, the black and whiteness of it is not like it was hard making it through that, but it was a little bit easier because it was very clear, right? Now I feel like there are rooms that I'm in and sometimes people that I'm around that do not outwardly judge me or oppose me. And they're fine with me, like they're happy with me as an individual. They even, I would go as far as to say they like me. And I think what gets confusing is when they are around you, they say they like you, they say that, like, they'll even ask about you. I mean, they go really that they are going through the motions, right? And I'm not even saying that's not genuine, but then you'll hear them say things maybe about like, well, that would be hard for me if it was my own kid. Or, and this is a tough one. I know I'm probably going to open a can of worms, but it's like, that's not top on their list of voting rights, like human rights and the ability to marry who you want, to make your own choices with your own body. Like those are not high on their list. There would be things about money and other things that would come before that. Yeah. Those are like those small instances that get really confusing. That to me is so much more of a mind fuck than someone who just outright is like, you're going to hell.
Yeah, definitely.
So I don't think I've been in a room in a long time around someone, unless just like a one-off crazy person of like, you're going to hell, or you're like down a road of destruction besides my family. I haven't been in a room like that in a while, but I do think I've been in a room many times where there's like subtle opposition. What about you?
I can see that. Yeah, I think I've never really encountered, I don't think I've ever really encountered, I made this joke in the first episode, but when I said I've never met a homophobic person, but like no one has ever really been outwardly like judgmental towards me or disrespectful or anything. But, you know, I talked about this in the episode we did with Anna. Like, I think there is, and pretty much for the most part, don't really give two fucks what anyone thinks about me. Like, I really don't. It's like, cry to your mom if you don't like them. I have a wife. Like, I really don't give a fuck. But there is a level, like, at work, it really happens a lot, you know, where someone this actually just happened to me, this example, but went much better than I thought. I have, you know, one of my clients is a bit challenging. And it's common, like, I just don't have a lot in common with my clients. You know, like, not that they're not all great, they are, but there's, you know, they're like twice my age, like 50 times my net worth. I mean, right? Like, I am their employee. They've hired me. It's not like we need to have a personal connection. That's not really what it's about.
Totally.
Anyway, so one of my clients was like, oh, like, what does your husband do? And I'm like, you know, and I just was like, oh, my wife, you know, whatever. And then I went on to say what you did. And it was like, I mean, no one blinked, and I was like, oh, that's great. She doesn't have to work out in the heat. It's so insufferable here. And then we just like moved on from the day. But I do find that every time it goes that way, I am like, you know, just relieved. And I think, again, that maybe that goes, I do think it kind of goes towards, they're not expecting that because that's their norm. But then I do think my appearance, like, I mean, although now we all know there's tons of like feminine gay people, obviously, like you're not expecting it. You know what I mean? So I feel like it's kind of like, in some cases, like, it's not like it's offensive if they're like, oh, but it's just nice when like it goes really just like, you know, without a hitch. And it never stops me from saying it. Like, there's not going to be a place in which I'm like not saying she or like doing anything to pivot around it. But I do kind of find myself every time I'm like, oh God, is this going to become like, and I don't think I have any clients. I mean, they're all lovely people. Like, no one, you know, whether they're into it or not, that would ever like say anything to me or make me feel uncomfortable in any capacity. But you just never know. And it just always feels like, oh, this is going to be like something we got to, you know, get around or whatever. But that's, yeah, I feel like that's really the only time that I do. I think, and I also think we just don't go to places. Like, we don't put ourselves in places. Like, I think, you know, maybe I think about it a little bit more when we visit our family in Florida, just because I'm like, oh my God, everyone here is like kind of nutty. But I see that, like, you know, my brother-in-law is Black, and I see them, they are the same way. Like, and they've been together longer than I've been alive, but
like they have to be cautious.
You can just tell that they are more like aware of their surroundings. It has nothing to do with their comfortability of their marriage. Like, they absolutely are so proud to be together and all of that. But I just think there's a little bit of a level of like assessing the situation that you're always in. So I do feel like that a little bit more when we're in those places, but I think we do a good job of like, you know, when we went to Italy or planned our honeymoon and stuff, like we're always looking for places and really doing a lot of research, which although is so unjust that it rules out some places that I would love to go to, we would never, like they're, like the Maldives or whatever. It's like, okay, technically you can go there and probably nothing would happen to you, but I'm not looking to go on a $10,000 beach vacation where I'm on edge. Or like I'm having to be like, we're in an Uber and I'm like, oh yeah, that's my sister. I'm like, what the fuck? I'm like, no.
And if you do that, that's okay because
Definitely.
that's your choice.
Definitely.
And sometimes I think in order to be safe, you have to make what choice is best for
sure.
you and your partner. So that's not a judgment.
No.
I think we're just at this place where it's like, I would rather not go than have to do that.
Right. There are other places I could go, but my point,
Yeah.
you're so right. Thank you for saying that. Excuse me. But my point in all of that was just like, I feel like we don't have to be, I don't want to say we don't put ourselves because there's so many people who would live in those situations. They have no choice. We're lucky to not have to be in situations where uncomfortability is presented to me. And I really feel like we don't. I mean, sometimes we'll get looks maybe, but I'm so like, I don't even notice because I'm like, I genuinely don't care.
Yeah. You know what? The place that I felt like the most like wanted as a queer person, like most celebrated, Florence.
Oh, really? Yeah, there were a lot of gay people there.
No, wait. Was that Florence with the market?
Yeah.
And with the one like for your birthday?
Market, yeah.
There were like flags and stuff everywhere, which is actually really funny because it brings me back to the flags. But it was a way,
I have a story
like
about
even
that
though I'm
too.
like, cool, have a flag, don't have a flag, whatever.
Yeah.
Like it was a way for us to tell that they were like, they seemed very open and
Yes.
welcoming.
Yeah.
It was like just an automatic like, oh, okay, that's cool.
I agree. No, sorry, go. You want to go?
Go ahead.
I just quickly wanted to share a story. You reminded me of that with the flags that I had. This came up. I told you about it because it was like such a great conversation. My eye doctor recently had a pride flag, and I in the past really wouldn't comment on that because I'm like, okay, great. But I find myself that I do now more because it just is like it is a level of like, oh, I can just lay my comfort down and I don't have to worry about like when we're having small talk about my life. Like I feel like I can be very candid about it. And again, like if you didn't have that, I'm still going to say my wife. Like it's not going to really change what I say, but it is going to change how I feel. And I made the comment, to the doctor. I'm like, oh, I love your flags or whatever. And she's like, oh, thank you so much. And she's like, what made you, notice that? I told her about you and stuff. And she's like, yeah. She just went on to say like it's so important for her that all of her patients feel, comfortable and welcome and that they know her values. And she said even with like the staff that she hires, like that comes up because she's like, there's a million other places you can work. And I'm sorry, but it won't be here if you're not accepting and all that. I'm like, it just does. It's like, it's not going to put me off if I'm not gay to see that. But if you are and you feel guarded, it just, I feel like lets you lay down that layer. And it's like, I mean, what's the sticker? Like 1 inch by 3 inches? It's like not something you have to do. It's not a grand gesture, but it means so much.
Yeah, it really does. We've been talking quite a bit about with, everything going on in the country and just, as we get closer and closer to the stage of our lives where we're hopefully going to be having kids and raising a family and all of that, I just feel like it's been on my mind so much, like where you live and what you're surrounded by is so important. And we have mostly straight friends here and a handful of gay friends. Speaking of gay friends.
Shout out Badge and Blueprints. Okay, we'll link their Instagram below. Our favorite gays.
Yeah, if you want to see a lovely, very smart police officer and an incredibly talented interior designer marry and live their lives together, it's a really great place for visibility. We appreciate and love them very much. They're one of the gay couples I'm talking about, some of our best friends. But we, thanks for the shout out, honey. We have been talking about this so much because it's like, it really matters where you live. And we currently live in Arizona and we've been talking about so much about, is this the right place for representation? Is this the right place for the school system? Is this the right place for all of the above? And if you know me at all, any type of thing like this with the way that my brain works, I just go into like research mode and I'm like researching all this stuff and it sends me kind of like on a rabbit trail and usually increases my anxiety. And then I'll work my way back down the other side of it. But I do think, I am curious, since we're kind of talking about this, do you think Arizona is a good place for representation and visibility and safety?
I know it is hard to say that. It's so hard because it's like we have, all of our friends are such incredible, like every single one of them. I'm like, I would leave my future child with you for a week,
Definitely.
like such safe, great people with fantastic values. Like we're so, so, so lucky to have that. But then on the other hand, you're like, there's a good chance that we're going to send our child to a school where we're probably going to be the only set of gay parents and they're great. I mean, there's not that, maybe there'll be like one or two others. I mean, I guess I don't really know how big school sizes are here, but daycare, those are small. Like we'll probably be the only ones. Mm-hmm. And, that is challenging. But I also think about what one of our other really good friends said, actually just this weekend when we were at dinner, about kind of the interesting phenomenon of when you want, and we were talking about schools in terms of education, but I think it applies to this as well. Like when you want something better for your child, so you send them elsewhere, but then you think like, I'm not helping my area. If we move and, our friends move, then we're not helping our area get more accepting. Now we've just taken more lesbians out of it. So I feel like I do kind of struggle with that, but I think that we're only going to know once we experience it, are we going to have, when we have children, are they going to come home and be like, oh, it's weird because today's like, but then other things like if there's like a daddy-daughter dance, I think about, well, actually, I really don't think about that. I'm only thinking about it right now in this example. It's like, that doesn't matter if we're in San Francisco, which is crawling with gay people, or here, like there's still no man here. They're not going to be like our kid. Either we're going to be taking them or they're not going. Like that's not really going to change based on where we live. And there's probably tons of other kids in their class who don't have a relationship with their dad. Or, there's going to be like a lot of other people who feel uncomfortable in that for whatever reason. So I don't know. I think it's important that we keep a finger on the pulse of the legalities that come down to our state. That's obviously non-negotiable, right? Like if things start going to the states and our state, goes sideways, it's not going to be about like, oh, we're bringing representation to the neighborhood. It's going to be like, we have to go where we're safe. But I think for now, I do feel like we kind of have something to offer there. Like even with a nonprofit, I mean, everyone there has been more than lovely to us. And to me, I mean, I talk to them separately while you're, schmoozing or whatever. And I think a lot of them probably wouldn't have expected, right? Like there's older crowds. It's a fundraising thing. That's nothing negative about them, but probably to have, such a young person as the president or a gay woman or whatever, but they're like, okay, like they've been so lovely and everyone that we've met through that is. So I think by being in areas, and again, at the gala, like I've never seen one time, but that was a bit of an interesting situation, but I've never seen another gay couple there, even with the guests, like it's only us, but that's not really stopping the conversation. And I think it's just putting more normalcy on the situation and showing that we do belong in those rooms just as much as everyone else. And I do take a sense of pride, for lack of a better word, in doing that.
Mm-hmm. I do too. And I agree with all of that. I think that Arizona is, I've really enjoyed living here. I have felt very accepted in almost every circle I run in. And that's not to say we agree on everything. Yeah. But I mean, as an individual, for our family, I felt like very well received, very well accepted. I think the only difference for me is like in those environments that we're in, we're grown adults. We can navigate through the fact that we're the only gay couple there. Well, for until this last gala where our friends came with us. And we can navigate some of those things, but a child cannot. It's very important that a child would see in our friend group and around us that, there's families that look like theirs. Mm-hmm. It's very important.
Yeah, I agree.
I'm not saying that we would necessarily get that somewhere else, but it has been on my mind quite a bit. It is
something to think about because I think you don't want, I feel like as a kid, it's like, there is always going to be I don't know why this is like kind of making me feel emotional.
I know
right
you're
now.
Like tearing
up. I know. I don't know what's happening to me, but I feel like when you're a kid, there's always going to be something that makes you feel alone, and there's always going to be something. I mean, even like I don't care if you're captain of the football team or whatever those stereotypes are. People who are popular. I've been friends with all those people. Like there is always, every teenager struggles, every kid struggles. Yeah. And there's always going to be something that makes you feel isolated or alone or different or that you're not good enough. And it does, I guess it does cause me pause or cause me pain maybe to think that would come from inside the home. They would think, oh, it's because of our family structure. But I also do so genuinely believe that with the other people we interact with, like it's a non-issue. I mean, they're going to be like, oh, mom's going with, Uncle so-and-so because you're like best friends with the guys. And then I feel like we are so intertwined that I'm really hoping that's not an issue, but it is kind of a pause for thought. I don't want that coming from us. But again, it's like, we're probably going to name the kid something someone's going to make fun of it for.
No, I agree. I agree with all of those things.
It is so hard, but
it's just about removing the barriers as much as we can.
Yes, definitely.
They will show up in the world in a different way than a kid from a heterosexual couple.
Yeah, definitely.
There's already going to be so many things. And I don't know the right answer to that. And I agree with everything you're saying. This is why it's still kind of like a thought process. And there's nothing to say that if we're like, shout out Callie, that we're like, oh, let's move to Cali. There's nothing guaranteeing that, it would never come up. That's just not the way the world works. I just do think that it's been on my mind so much more. Like, have we positioned ourselves in an appropriate area and time and space, to remove as many barriers as possible for our family?
Maybe we can move to Central Phoenix.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. It's also like, what can we afford?
Right.
Because as much as I would pick up and move, mainly just even for the weather alone.
It's 105 today, so we're a bit on edge.
Yeah.
But I know it is true. And representation and all of that. We thought about that at our wedding. Like, we're like, oh, there's not really that many. Well, there was a handful of gay couples, but you're like, but then it's also like, I don't know.
But it's also a smaller portion of the population.
It is something that comes up, where you're like, are they going to see? But I think there's all different types of families, like we're going to teach our children, like you might meet someone that only has a mom or only has a dad, or they might have grandparents, or they might have Aunt Susan might raise them. I mean, it's whoever. Like, family dynamics look so different in tons of different ways. And I guess it's just about being prepared, but it is definitely something to think about.
Yeah, for sure. And I do want to give a nod to Arizona. I do feel like it has, even in since the very first year that I moved here, I do feel like it's come a long way, and I like it. I think it's a beautiful state. I can appreciate some of the work that our governor is doing and all of that. So I definitely have to give the old girl Arizona a shout out. And I think for us, though, I think these are just things that really become very, very important when you're thinking of taking that next step into building a family and thinking through those things. And I'm like the type of person, right or wrong, that I don't care how much I've built a life somewhere, that I would start over completely if it was better for our kids.
Definitely.
But I also do believe there is a lot of representation here, and there are a lot of options. And I think it's also mine and your responsibility to make sure that we also are exposing them to different makeups of families.
Yeah, I agree.
Like, we have to kind of go out of our bubble as well to make sure that happens. If you live in an area that, there's not as many, I don't know, gay people,
Yeah.
You do. I have to put in more effort.
It is interesting how, I feel like, though, and again, I think this kind of goes back to talking about why we do still need pride. You guys have the Jeep wave. I feel like you have that when you see any gay people, but I think especially when we see another lesbian couple in the wild, we're we pretty much always comment on it. One of us will say something, or we kind of have a look, and you will you'll pass in Target and everyone's you kind of yeah, there we are. It's just interesting how you find that kind of unwritten sense of community, I guess. I don't know if that's the right thing to say, but just interesting that you notice that. I'm do straight people notice it? Maybe they do. I don't know. Maybe you do.
Do straight people notice other straight people?
Yeah, you're at a restaurant and you're oh yeah, the table next to us, they're straight. Because we always notice oh, that's a lesbian couple.
I guess I can't speak for straight people. I'm not straight, but I've never heard a straight person be they're straight for sure.
I know. Yeah, I bet they don't. But I just think it's interesting to point out.
They are the larger majority.
Right.
Yeah, there's not really a need to.
Right.
You wouldn't really notice that much.
Yeah, that's true. You're not on the lookout. But it does kind of, again, it's the little pride flag. It does make you feel oh, okay. There's other, especially when you, we talked about this when we were looking at fertility clinics, then you're oh, you'd see another queer couple and you're okay. If you're at a doctor's office or something, I think it just makes you feel oh, okay. This is kind of a safe space for us and in your work or anything,
Yeah, for sure. And I think too, it kind of brings you back to a place where you realize that representation and pride and all of the invisibility and all of those things are like so much our responsibility as well, wherever we live, in whatever state we live, in whatever way we can do that. I know there's many, many people that I've talked to that have they live in states that are very different from Arizona. Arizona sounds like a dream in comparison to some of the places that they live. And they've shared with us, like, what visibility means for them. And, and it's different depending on their level of safety and things like that. And so I do think that as queer individuals, we have a responsibility to make sure that wherever we live, in whatever stage of our lives that we're in, that we express ourselves in a way that feels meaningful to us. It'll look different for everyone. There's no right way to do that.
Definitely.
But in honor of pride, I think it's really important to have this conversation of what does it look like to be proud of who you are and proud of your family and proud of where you are. And how do we express that in a way that creates more inclusion?
Yeah, definitely. And I think just, I kind of started with this, but just a reminder, like you said, for us or anyone, it's like, it is a privilege for us to be out and married and, all of those things. And like we talked about with work, if I just brushed past that and I didn't make it clear to correct, people, it's like I'm doing a disservice to people that can't come out because maybe they don't even live here. Maybe they are in a country where it's illegal, or maybe they're, maybe they are here and they're like a younger kid that's fearful or any of that. It's like I am wasting the privilege that I have, or wasting the really hard work that you've done for us. That's not to be taken lightly. I think it's really our responsibility to do that, because there's a lot of people who can't, and that doesn't take away their pride. I think we're really proud of everyone wherever they are in their journey too. I think that's important to say, like, whether you're out or you're an ally or, maybe you don't feel safe enough to be out. It's like we're, just being a resource for people like that and using your voice as best as you can, continuing to learn. I mean, Anna educated us a ton on the previous episode, but it is important for us to continue to do that, because it doesn't make us the perfect ally just because we're both also queer. Like we have to really continue to work to better ourselves every day and understand. I mean, the younger generation, they have a whole slew of things I don't really understand. But am working to understand and be educated about and support people. So just continuing to show up in those spaces and do the work and amplify voices for people that need it, I think is super, super important.
Yeah, for sure. So those key phrases, amplifying the voices of yourself, of those around you. So be loud, be proud, enjoy Pride Month, and don't worry about anyone who says otherwise. Thanks, guys.